Like you said, my name is Ross. I'm originally from Ohio. I'm a traveler at heart. I feel like I like traveling. I'm very nomadic. So basically what you're talking about, like my project is right now is I'm writing letters to people, places, and things just to kind of like understand different things of life and different thoughts. And yeah.
It's been a while since we last saw each other, about 4 years or so. Maybe 4 years is nothing for you, but I feel like I've changed so much since then. But who knows? Maybe I haven't really changed so much. I am still a traveler at heart, after all.
But then I went to Buenos Aires, which is this huge, chaotic city where there's it's a big mess, but it's somehow like beautiful at the same time. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it somehow works. You don't know how it works, and everything it flows in this disorderly order.
To the friends I met while traveling, whether we met for 10 minutes, spent days together getting lost in random cities, or stayed up late having the cliched traveler versus tourist debate, I want to let you know this. I'm so grateful that we met. As travelers, we're all on our own paths in the pursuit of adventure and meaning, but for a brief moment, our paths crossed and we got to share a little bit of ourselves with each other. Your stories, your laughs, and even the struggles that we shared, those moments inspired me in ways I didn't expect. So my friend, wherever you are, whether the backpack's hung in the closet or you're still out on the road chasing adventure and something new, I'm cheering for you. I hope that whatever it is that you're looking for, you find it. Know that I'm forever grateful for meeting you, and that I'm looking forward to when our paths will meet again.
So I sold everything that I had, which wasn't much, but I still sold everything. And I took a backpack and I started like traveling throughout all of South America. And then whenever I would run out of money, I'd go back to the United States and work like a quick job for 3 months. And then I'd travel to another part, like whether it be Europe. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And it was a really cool experience.
Every immigrant has a story of love, heartbreak, and resilience. I'm Claudio Munoz. After 30 years in the United States, I created this podcast to share the voices that won't help me survive. These stories have power, they guide, heal, and inspire, especially when you're far from home or about to leave. I share some of mine, now I want yours. We're all immigrants, those who leave, return, or dream, because being an immigrant is being intense. All right, well, good. We're recording now. We have Ross with me. Thank you, Ross, for accepting my invitation. Ross is someone I found on TikTok. I'm surfing for stories, and I'm looking for people that have stories. And Ross lives in Argentina. He's an immigrant living in Argentina. And I know you said that, we are the word immigrant for you, but we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
And then he has a very cool channel where he writes letters to himself, talking or to the audience, I guess. But it blew me away. It was really good. It's very addictive. If you haven't heard or watched his channel, go for it. It's really, really cool. And anyway, so that's what I know about you. So I'm going to let you take the microphone and talk a little bit about you, something I didn't say, and then we can go into the entire conversation.
Okay, sweet. Well, thank you so much again for having me here. Like you said, my name is Ross. I'm originally from Ohio. I've been living in Argentina now for almost 3 years, but before then I also did an exchange year in college where I spent a year in Buenos Aires as well. I'm a traveler at heart. I feel like I like traveling. I'm very nomadic. I've lived in many places in the world. And yeah. And so basically what you're talking about, like my project is right now is I'm writing letters to people, places, and things just to kind of like understand different things of life and different thoughts. And yeah.
That's a pretty neat idea. I don't know. That's it blows me away sometimes when people have, this awesome idea like, yours, the way you do it is pretty neat because your voice, the tone, and everything, it's just great. At least I enjoy it.
Thank you.
Because I'm surfing for immigrants online, the algorithm pushed it to my platform. So it was great. And thanks for accepting my invitation, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
So
That actually,
anyway,
the idea letter started from the pandemic where everything was closed, and me and my friends, we started literally writing letters, and they got to the point where it's like they were these deep, like novel things where it's like, it's a cold night in Ohio and I'm doing boom boom, and then you have like 15 pages of like these like spilling your soul out, and then you're sending it to different countries around the world. And that's what we did during pandemic, is we sent each other letters. So yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. Anyway, this is gonna be a great podcast. First, because I am Argentinian, and I live in your country, and you are American and living in my country, right? Which is
Yeah.
it's crazy because this is why I'm passionate about this project. I want to learn about immigrants and immigrant stories, and evidently you found something in Argentina. That's why you live in there, and I left I left Argentina, right? So
Yeah.
tell me why you there. What drive you to move to Argentina? How everything started, how everything began.
Okay, yeah. So it all started with when I was in college, I studied international relations, and one of the requirements to get the degree or the program was you had to study abroad. And I was also studying Spanish as my like language to complement it at the time. Our college had a really cool program in Spain, but for whatever reason, I wanted to go to Latin America, and so I like it was by chance basically that I chose Argentina, but I studied abroad there for a year, and that was my first time leaving like small town Ohio, which is it's a really cool way of life. I'm from like a town right on the lake, and it's a really cool. The summers are absolutely magical. But then I went to Buenos Aires, which is this huge chaotic city where there's it's a big mess, but it's somehow like beautiful at the same time. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's just it somehow works. You don't know how it works, and everything just it flows in this disorderly order. And I really, really liked the way of living, the way that like the value of community. I think that's something that maybe in the United States we've lost a little bit, or maybe it's just a different way of showing that bond. So yeah, basically I was there for a year, and then after that year, I returned back to the United States. I finished my college program. I ended up working a year, my first like real job out of college, and I wasn't feeling like I was connecting with where I was. And it was like the typical story of like where it was the perfect job, the perfect life, blah 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 blah, but something didn't feel right. So I sold everything that I had, which wasn't much, but I still sold everything, and I took a backpack and I started like traveling throughout all of South America. And then whenever I would run out of money, I'd go back to the United States and work like a quick job for 3 months, and then I'd travel to another part, like whether it be Europe. And I did that for about 2.5 years, and it was a really cool experience. But and the idea of that was to see if it was just Argentina that I liked, or if it was just not being in the United States that I liked. And so in the end, it was Argentina. I liked Argentina. I really vibed with the people I met here, my friends, and I missed them. So I ultimately, after COVID happened, I lived in Boston for a couple of years, and that was a really cool experience that changed my perspective on what life could be like living in the United States, because it was a city experience instead of like the small town experience that I was used to. That was really cool. And I love Boston. And but yeah, so I finally still had that like that want to go back to Buenos Aires, and I felt like I owed it to myself, to my 21-year-old self that said I was going to come back. And so I made the promise and I came back, and it's been really good since.
Do you think that Buenos Aires is probably like New York, right? Not the same size. Probably New York is a lot more chaotic. I would think. Um, but it's one of those places that when you go, it's crowded, and noise all over the place. It's kind of crazy. And then you think Buenos Aires is probably a lot like that. I think every city in the world big city in the world is probably a little bit like that, right? A place that you don't like, but you like at the same time. It's weird.
Yeah, actually, so I was living 2 years in Boston before, and I'd go to New York semi-frequently too when I was living there, because it was 4 hours on the train. So as soon as I got to Buenos Aires, something that I noticed, and it was after living like 2 years in American cities, was people here walk slow, and I couldn't believe, like, I'm like, people here walk slow, and like even like in this big crazy city, everything is a lot more tranqui. It's a lot more like chill, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so like that was like really, and then everyone here in Argentina be like, oh, it's so chaotic, it's so busy, it's so
Right.
stressful, this life. And I'm thinking like, have they been to North America ever? Like what's going on here? And then after like 3 months of being here, I
Right.
spent like a weekend in the province of Argentina in the countryside, and then I went back and I'm like, oh, this city, it's so chaotic and
Right.
crazy. And I
Right.
understood, but like it was I
Right.
remember distinctly coming from living in the cities in North America and be like, ah,
Right.
muy bien. That was Siri. Uh, but yeah, I distinctly remember though that it was a lot more crazy and chaotic.
Right. Yeah, Argentina is a lot more. I mean, it's a slower culture, right? Slower. The
For
life is
sure.
slower. United States is consumers. It's a consumer country, a consumer economy. I'm saying it right. Consumer economy.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
shops are businesses are open 24/7. In
For
Argentina, it's not like that. So that's a big difference. When I took my wife for the first time to Argentina to visit, in the afternoon, you can't find anything open, or,
No.
on a Sunday, sometimes you can't. And my wife is like, can we go buy something? I said, no, it's closed right now. We got to wait until it's open, right? 5 or 6 p.m., right?
Or even like with repairing things too, right?
Right,
Like in the United States, we just say, the zipper is broken, let's just throw it out. Here
right,
you can, things are fixed and reused and not as wasted.
right. That definitely this topic drive us into the cultural adaptation, right? Because as an immigrant, that's a process you go through, is the cultural adaptation.
Yeah.
And it happened to me. It probably happened to you, right? And
For sure.
um, I learned something when I was here a long time. I fixed something. And you tell me how your experience is in Argentina too, right? But I fixed something. First time in the United States, first year in the United States, I fixed a panel for a Corvette. I
Okay.
fixed plastic. It was a plastic panel. Fix it, paint it, and I'm all excited. So I'm gonna show these American, right, Argentinians. Argentina very proud. Whatever. So I fixed it. I'm gonna show them. And I brought it to the client, and I showed them the panel. The client is like, it looks like shit. I'm like, no, it looks good. He said, no, it looks like shit. Look, you can tell it's a repair part, like it's being fixed. Yeah, I mean, I'm selling you a repair part, like a fixed part. Yeah, but here in the United States, this is what he told me. When you fix something, it should look like new. We can buy new. The money's not a problem, right? If we're really gonna buy,
Oh,
I mean, right? We want to save the money, but it needs to look like new. This looks like shit. That was a huge cultural shock because I was so proud of my work,
yeah.
right?
And he just like,
Right. But I learned. I mean, that's what happened when you migrate, right? You migrate to another country. That's where you learn. So I don't know if you have something repaired in Argentina, but if you do, you have the culture from here where things need to look 10, not 5 or
yeah,
6, 10. So I don't know if that happened to you, but if you're going to fix something in Argentina, probably it's not going to be a 10. They're going to tell you, oh, this is a repair part. This is what you
yeah,
get.
exactly. Yeah. For me, it was like I think again, it was directly like I had like a water heater broke, and I thought, oh, I'll just buy a new water heater. And then my friends looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, "You're crazy, dude." And I said, "Why? I'll just get it." He's like, "Nah, you can." And I'm like, "You can?" Like,
Right,
yeah.
right,
And
right,
then lo and behold, like a few days later, I didn't have to buy a new thermo tank. I had to, yeah, it was all set.
right. No, but cultural shock is a real thing. And I learned, but it takes a long time to learn that stuff. So let's talk about culture, right? How was for
Okay.
you from the moment you put a foot on Argentinian soil, uh, moving forward? How was the adaptation? How long did it take you? Was it hard? Was it easy?
Yeah, I think um at least in Buenos Aires, I want to say that like I'm in the city, so I'm not sure if I were to go in another place it'd be different. But like, and also remember this is when I was in college, was my first time in Argentina, so my first experience to it. So maybe my memory is forgetting like the hard things. I think honestly the most difficult thing about Argentina for me at first was just embracing the times of day of eating. I just remember like the first 3 weeks I was so hungry and then waiting until that glorious like 9:30 p.m., 10 o'clock to eat dinner. And then I was also like, yeah, I also like, I like to eat. Like that's my favorite thing. And definitely, portions are smaller here, which is fine. But
Hi,
like, I just remember being hungry the first 2 weeks.
hi, yeah,
Not like
eh,
not in the fact that like there's not food or there's not abundance. It's just like things are
hi,
a little bit smaller here, you know?
hi. It is the the cultural thing is a real thing and it happens. Um, so how people treat you in Argentina is are they treat you with respect? How sometimes people say Argentinians are very arrogant. So what's your what is your experience with Argentinian culture?
I think I haven't had really much negative experience ever. There was only a few like in terms of like the people socially meeting people, it's always been a very positive, very receptive experience and stuff. Which has been it's been making living here that much easier. Sometimes you like people have secondary intentions. That happens with any person and any time you cross in life, sometimes like be talking to someone and thinking, this person's really interested in me and maybe they just want an English lesson, which is fine. Or it's happened only a few times where it's my WhatsApp is still my American number, so like I'll write and ask for prices and then they'll quote me in dollars at first and they said, oh no, I need to pay in pesos, and then suddenly it's like 30% cheaper. uh,
Right, right.
but I think those are the only like negative things, and those are very far and few in between,
Um, so I have another question. So, for example, I just lost my thought right now. What's about culture? So, um, dang it, I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Anyway,
let's keep going.
yeah, let's keep going. So, so do you miss your family? How do you deal with being apart from your family? How frequently you can go back and forth, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. My first 2 years, I was back in Ohio, like 3 or 4 different times, and then I realized that it's not sustainable just because one, like, I have like a routine and I have a life here, and then to leave so much, it kind of it pulls you away from that because it's not like when I'd go to Ohio, I wouldn't fly back for just a week because it's on the other side of the world, and so I'd be there for at least 3 or 4 weeks if I could, So yeah, that kind of slowly went from 3 times a year to two, and then I haven't made it back this year, for example. But my plan is to go back in, God willing, in October. I think I have to do, just like silly paperwork stuff. But I miss my family. That's definitely the hardest part. I have 7 nephews, and they're all growing up really quickly. My brothers and sisters too. I come from a really big family, and I realize that like being on the other side of the world, I lose out on the closeness with them, and I try to talk as much as I can virtually, stay very connected, and that's a good thing, but obviously it's not the same as being in the presence,
That's something that we have in common, right? We all miss our hometown, our family, our friends.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a normal thing. Um, uh, uh, so I remember the question that I wanted to ask you, and it was related to culture. Argentinians are we joke very heavily, right?
Yeah.
And I just wonder how Americans are not like that, right? So Argentina, we don't have limits how we joke,
No,
and yeah, if we pick on you, we could pick on you for hours. So I just and it's not with bad intention. It's just a cultural thing, right?
totally. Yeah.
So how did you deal with that? How did you adapt to that way of joking and heavy jokes, right?
Yeah, it wasn't too big of a deal for me. I think it's true because like I imagine like the other day I was thinking of some of the things, and I don't want to repeat them because they're really vulgar if I think about them, but like just the thing of like how I speak with my friends here.
Yeah.
I train in a gym here and we talk like really strange, and then like not strangely, but it's very
Yeah.
disgusting how we speak
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
And
Right.
like
Right. Right.
I was thinking about that, like if I were to say that in English to someone in the United States, like it would
Right.
be like it would not come across as so for me at first, like wasn't offended. I was kind of funny when people were calling each other this or that, and it's just like
Right.
what it was I
Interesting.
guess like I took it as like a curious thing, and then once like I learned how to like bardear to like to go back with them
Right.
to bully or like how do you
Right.
say bardear to like
Like yeah, bully is it's called bully in Argentina too.
yeah,
So
yeah, but
yeah.
not bully, but like to like how do you say it?
Uh heavily joking or um I don't know what the word that you're
There's
looking
a
for.
word. It starts with a B. There's a word. There's a word. It's banter. Banter. That's the word.
Right.
To go with to have the banter.
Right. Right. Um
Yeah,
no, that's something that I was very interested to ask you, right? How do you deal with that? I live in Louisiana, and in Louisiana, the Cajuns, I don't know if you heard about Cajun culture before.
yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Of all the American culture or every state, the Cajun probably joke a little bit more heavier, a little bit more out of the ordinary compared to other states.
Oh, that's good.
Uh,
That's good.
and they asked me, say, "You're a good sport, man. You're a good sport. You don't, it doesn't bother you." I'm Argentina, man. They think what you're telling me is gonna affect me. It's not gonna affect me at all. Like we joke really, really heavy. Like what you're
Yeah,
telling me is not nothing. I don't feel anything. We don't take it personal. That's how we joke about it.
yeah.
Um, so right now, what is your current job right now? You're working for outside of for American companies, so you're working in Argentina.
So I do marketing. I do like freelance marketing mostly for smaller businesses that are trying to grow through email campaigns
Hmm.
and I'm starting to do this new style called emotive storytelling, basically helping brands like find their story and so they can kind of use like emotional appeal to sell their products and stuff.
That's cool. That explains a lot your channel, right? You know about emotions and how to connect with people. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's pretty
basically
cool.
creating something more and humanizing it.
Right. Um, can we talk about dating? Is that something that you're
Yeah,
comfortable talking?
absolutely. Yeah.
How was your dating experience in Argentina? Right. Again, it's all cultural, differences that I want to find out how you did.
So can we talk about is everything on the table or like is there like
Yeah.
how much do you want to know?
Yeah. Whatever you want to share is fine.
Okay. Yeah, so dating is a lot more or I guess you could say like I think Buenos Aires has a culture of a lot more like casual hookups and things like that that
Yeah.
is not kind of the norm from where I'm from anyways. I don't want to say all of the United States, but I think in Argentina everything is way more tranqui, way more relaxed about
Right.
everything, you know? I've had really good experiences dating in Argentina. I've had a lot of fun, in the sense that just like, I think in the city, it's so easy to meet people and dating here, it's a lot less on dating apps. Like, I don't think dating apps really are a thing per se, or they are, but like, I've found way more success just like meeting people in person.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so I think that it speaks to what Argentina is about the human connection. Um, and yeah, so like what specifically do you want to know?
I mean that was good enough. If that's what you want to share. I mean, that was good. I just want to know if you probably struggle, talking to girls. It was easy to talk to them. It was hard to talk to them. It was hard to ask someone to take them on a date, or usually I'm gonna tell you. First of all, time change.
Yeah,
I left in the early '90s. So,
yeah,
we're talking about more than 30 years ago. So time changed. It's not the same. But if you're a foreign, right, you're from another country and you speak another language, it's going to be a lot easier for you than an Argentinian person. At least that's
Yeah,
my
I
experience now. I mean, that was my experience from back in the day. And I
sure.
was there in 2016 single, and I went to a dance place where the people were dancing. There was 3 or 4 guys. They were Europeans. I don't know where they were, and they were surrounded by girls. Surrounded by girls. It was in Mar del Plata. In Mar del Plata.
Oh,
Uh, maybe they were. I won't say what country they were because I can't remember. But they were
sure.
they were definitely getting a lot of attention, and we were
Yeah.
just laughing, right? That was back in 2016.
Yeah,
So
I don't yeah, I think it definitely it's a conversation starter for sure, but like you still have to like go from there, you know? And you still have to like work your levante,
right,
your game, you know? But it's definitely like a good conversation starter for sure.
right. But anyway, so are you planning to come back to the U.S. or is Argentina your forever home?
Oh, that's a really hard question. I don't see myself leaving Argentina, but I'm afraid of commitment. So when you say forever, that's like, you know,
Right,
but this is the longest in my adult life. Argentina is the longest that I've lived anywhere. So for me, that speaks a lot.
right. Um, you know something that I tell people here is that as a child I grew up with the same animated cartoons that Americans grow up with. And a lot of people were surprised about that. And I can tell you, we have a big gap in age. I'm on my 50s, right? So I can tell you maybe cartoons that you wouldn't even know. But I talk to people my age here, and they're surprised that I grew up with the same type of
You
animated,
talking about
right?
like The Simpsons?
The Simpsons was too new for me.
Okay.
I grew up with the Three Stooges. I grew up with Daniel Boone. I grew up with
Okay.
Tom Sawyer. I grew up with Abbott and Costello. I grew up with Wacky Racers, all the Hanna-Barbera um, cartoons. I mean, these are uh, a lot of the people that are my age. They know what I'm talking about. But
And they were
um,
the same.
right. So the thing is, the reason why I brought that up because when we talk about culture, you know, uh, Argentina probably know a lot more about you than you know about them, right? Well, in your case, maybe a
Yes.
little bit different because you already were there one time and then you were planning the second trip and you study Argentina, you learn about them, but you also learn the language, right?
Yeah.
But that's something how people react to that. Did they ask you about movies or what are the things that they ask you? You're like, oh man, uh,
I think I think the first question they ask is like, "Why am I here?" I think
uh
Argentinians are so confused. They're like, "Why are you here?" Like it just kind of just blows their mind. But I think that's a big question. They ask about the food. I'm not really one to. I think now like everyone watches Netflix, so everything's kind of like
time
everything's the same.
change, right?
Yeah.
I get with
And
Americans that we talk about cartoons from back in the day, and they're surprised that I know all these things. Said, did they show this in Argentina? Yeah, they did. Um, yeah, time changed, man. So, uh, how how you do with the language in Argentina? Because did you learn Argentine Spanish before you went to Argentina? That was the first Spanish you learned, or you knew other Spanish, or maybe Mexican Spanish, and then you went to Argentina. Was like, whoa, man, this is not the same Spanish.
so I took Spanish in high school, and I had a very strict Spanish teacher. I could never get an A in that class, which was also because I was lazy. But I was really good at Spanish. Like languages were kind of like what I was really good at. So and that was it was like a neutral Spanish. It was I think they call it Castellano, which is like the
Gatachán.
neutral, yeah. And then I went and I lived in a and I lived in college, and we I was in like a Spanish learning community, and we still learned like a neutral Spanish, but there I was exposed to like different variants of it, like from Puerto Rico or from Mexico, etc. But I also speak Italian at the same time. So
Wow.
when I heard Argentinian Spanish, I was fascinated because I'm like, ah, this kind of sounds a little bit like Italian. And then I learned about like all of the like Italianisms that are put in the language, and then I really thought that was really cool. And so that's kind of like where that started. And then I came to study in Argentina, and then from there, it kind of like my ear kind of just like picked up on it, and that typically happens no matter like where I'm at, sort of like. I was in Spain last summer for like a month, and then like I was speaking a little bit with a little bit of the Spain intonation, and it happens. When I lived in Boston too, I was one day I was on a Teams meeting, and some I said, "Hey, I'll send you the picture," and I that was like without wanting to say, I said picture instead of picture, and it was
Right.
just like 'cause I was working with these older people from New England, and that's how they spoke. So yeah,
Right. Um, yeah, man. The language, the Spanish pronunciation changes. So if you're learning Spanish for the first time, it could be quite challenging, unless you only, you only talk to one. Like if you live in Argentina, it's only Argentina. But if you go out of Argentina to Spain, like I
yeah,
probably would say Barcelona, but in Spain they're gonna say Barcelona, right?
sure, yeah.
Um,
Was that like when you came to the United States? Has your Spanish changed now since living here? Are you
yeah,
speaking more neutral
people told
sometimes?
me that my accent changed when I
Okay,
speak Argentine Spanish. One, because
do
I
you
speak
change?
another language, right? So that
Sure.
by default you change. Even if you don't have to speak English perfect to lose your accent.
No,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
No, for sure.
and then yeah, I also mix Spanish and English, and I also you know learn from other Latin speaking people where my English, my Spanish is horrible right now. It's really bad.
Do you ever
Uh,
find yourself using like other words that maybe that aren't used in Argentina anymore? Like,
yeah, sometimes I say words that are not Spanish, right? For
okay,
example, let me see if I can think of one. Um, well, the parking, for example, parking, right?
okay,
Parquear.
okay.
That's not a true. That's not a Spanish word,
No,
right?
okay, that makes
So,
sense.
and as when I say parquear, other Argentinians that way. What is
Yeah.
parquear? It's
What is
like,
parque? Yeah.
right, yeah. So words like that, right? There are, it screw up my Spanish completely. And
I have perdón.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm in a group chat, so there's with two other friends, and they're from Buenos Aires, but they're also American too because like their parents are from the United States, and so like we have this group chat, and we go back and forth, and this like if anyone was like to look at how we think, it's because we'll go back and forth like mid sentence or mid word, like from
Right,
Spanish to English, and it's just like it makes sense to us, but it's just it really sometimes I reread and be like, wow, this I don't know if it's laziness or like what, or if this means like we're illiterate or what, but it's amusing.
right. So, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur, Ross? Well, I think that people that migrate, they have to have a little bit of that, right? I'm not saying you're like a full entrepreneur, right? Or every immigrant is like that, but taking the step to leave to another country is not an easy decision. Take courage, right?
For
And
sure.
facing your fears. You went to a place where people don't speak the language, different culture. Even public transportation is different.
Yeah.
Everything is different, right? Bathrooms are different, restaurants are different. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur somehow or any way?
Yeah, I mean, I think an entrepreneur is someone who creates their own like I guess wealth or their own income. So I think in that sense, but I think I view more myself as like a dreamer and a visionary, but yeah, entrepreneur too. That's yeah.
Well, but I think that for being an entrepreneur, those are components that you need to have. You need to have a vision. You have to be a dreamer, right? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you want to be an entrepreneur. Without that, how can you be an entrepreneur, right? So I think you need to be. I mean, if you disagree, tell me. But I think to have a you can need. So if you want to do something, if you I don't know, maybe travel the world or start a new business, whatever it is, you gotta have a vision. You gotta have it,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah. How do we define entrepreneur?
I think someone that wants to start something new, something that has some vision, whatever. I'm not talking only about business, right? I'm talking about
Ah, okay.
in general, right? I think, yeah, if you want to think from a business perspective, I mean, you also for a business you need to have, like for example, I'm in the software industry, right? And developing a
Sure.
software. I started with an idea and a vision, and then I decided to start doing
Yeah.
something, right? If I want to go back to Argentina for whatever reason, I think I'm looking for a vision. I imagine something. I'm looking into something. How I imagine myself, and then I made the step. Is it an entrepreneur make the first step after something else? You tell me, because I'm interested in your opinion.
Yeah, I guess I've only thought of entrepreneur from the business sense before. I never looked at it in a broader definition of the word, but that makes sense. And now I'm thinking that means to go you're the middleman, right? Is that if you're gonna like break the word up entrepreneur,
So
like yeah,
entrepreneur, if you translate that to Spanish, for example, which it doesn't mean that they're the
emprendedor,
same.
like
Emprendedor. Emprender is you're taking
to
off.
light up.
Yeah, you're taking off.
Ah,
You're doing like you start. You initiate something,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I guess I never thought of it like that before. I guess like for me, entrepreneur is just like a homie that creates a business. That was my
Right,
definition. That's actually really cool. I never thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
right. That's what I was thinking because I try to give that title to immigrants. I think we all live for different reasons, and you have your own reason. You're not living because you were hungry or for whatever reason, but your reasons are valid. And you had a vision, you had a dream, you want to travel the world, whatever it is. I think that make you an emprendedor, right? An entrepreneur, someone that make a step to something different, creating a
Yeah.
different life. Because one person asked me one time, what is business for you? And I said,
Okay.
business making money. And that person is like, can I give a different definition? He's like, sure. He's like, business is balance your work life with your family. If you have a business where you constantly are into the business
Mhm.
and you don't have time for your family or even one day to play golf just for you, a day for you, you don't have a business. You're making money. You have some sort of a business that is 100% dependent on you, but it's not really a true business. The way he explained it to me, he was teaching me management and a bunch of stuff. I was taking management classes, and this guy owned multiple businesses. And the way his life was planned out was he was working 3 days out of the week. Then he had family time, and Friday was his day for him, right? The dream life.
Wow. For sure. Yeah.
Right. So I say, okay, for me, it was just a business is making money. But he's like, if your business depends 100% on you, it's going to die with you. So a true
For sure.
business doesn't depend on you. It runs as a business, and that will give you time to your family, right? And that would be a definition of business for me. That's what he told me.
Got it.
So I don't know. That's just
That's really cool.
right.
That's a good tidbit I'll take with me.
I learned that from an American man. He taught me that. That was it was good. I like that.
That's
But
the cool
anyway,
thing though, like after being an immigrant is you have both tips, you know?
right.
You can put on both and be like, okay, I'm gonna wear the American hat today and this is what we're doing, this is how we're looking at things. You can also be like, okay, I'm gonna put on this hat, I'm gonna put on this hat, and that's one of the cool benefits. And also double-edged sword because then you're left confused sometimes, not sure what to do.
I know, but most of the time it's beneficial, right? Because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think yeah, but if you open minded, right? I think when you migrate to when you're gonna make a step like you did, it's about being open minded and getting educated, right? And I think when I come to the United States, I learn from the United States. I didn't
Yeah.
at the beginning. I was a little bit confused, but I quickly understood that I needed to learn what's here, what's going on here, respect the culture, learn the language. Because one of the things that people told me from the very beginning, oh, Americans are racist. They don't like you. That's wrong.
Mm.
And I'll tell you why. Because I learned the language. And when you learn the language, you can talk to other people, communicate with other people,
Mhm.
right? And now you get to know them. Like I'm talking to you right now.
For
I could
sure.
talk to you in Spanish or English. We choose English, but this is how I'm getting to know you. And
Yeah.
you have people that are racist. Absolutely. We have them in Argentina too. Because
Yep.
racist come in different forms. Could be cultural, could be language, the way you look, skin color, doesn't matter, right?
And it's crazy because like when you do learn that language is like think of how many different like opportunities like we can have this conversation now, but even like with the random encounters that you never have before, the different yeah, it's I think learning language is one of the most beneficial life skills.
Right. I'm learning and I'm combining my culture with, I get the best out of Argentina and the best of Americans. And I'm also other cultures I meet along the way, other people, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I think I think that's the advantage that we have. And if you're really an entrepreneur, you're going to leverage with that. You're going to use it for
Yeah,
yourself, right?
absolutely.
So, Ross, I don't have more questions for you. I think it was a great conversation. I think, it's very interesting that, I left Argentina and you went to the country I left.
Yeah.
um, but that tells you that people look for happiness. No, it's not about where you live and it's not about money. It what works for you. And you
Yeah.
find right now that moment of happiness in Argentina, you're enjoying it. Maybe it might last another year, 2 years, it doesn't matter. And that's what is an immigrant. It doesn't matter. I interview people that live in Mexico. You
Yeah.
know, it's just insane. Or they're moving to other countries. I mean, I interview people. I'm interviewing people from all over the world. People that go to Europe, and it's just for me, it's about what you need, what you want, and what you're looking for, right? And that's what being an immigrant is.
When does someone become an immigrant per se? Because like I think for me, a lot of times, like for example, when I was traveling the world and being very nomadic, like I didn't feel like an immigrant, even though I technically wasn't immigrant per se, just in transit, you know? Like when I was in Brazil for 4 months, was I an immigrant there or was I just a
No,
tourist, you
I
know?
think an immigrant is someone that migrates to a country, and someone in the audience can leave a comment and say if I'm wrong. But when you migrate to a country, depends on how long you're gonna stay. Is it a permanent? Is it a temporary migration? If you think
Okay.
about birds, right? Did you ever went bird hunting?
Bear hunting?
No, bird hunting, like duck hunting.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, I done it here in Louisiana. That's the thing here. So
Okay.
the ducks migrate, right? They're not here in
Yeah.
Louisiana all the time, but they migrate to Louisiana
Yep.
during winter, and that's when we do the hunting. Either winter or summer. I don't know if there's a Louisiana person in the audience. They can criticize me if I say something wrong, but I think a migrant, if you're traveling all over the world and you're not staying in one place for too long, maybe you're not a migrant. But if you stay for a month, seasonal is per season, right? Birds are seasonal. They move,
Sure.
right? So and they migrate. So
Yeah.
that's the best way I can explain migration. I'm not an expert on the matter. Like I know how to play with words and, you know, but
Yeah, for sure.
um, that's what I think. So if you're gonna be in Argentina for longer than a year, I think you just maybe temporary migrant there, but you don't feel like it. You never. Because when I asked you about are you an immigrant in Argentina, you were like, I don't know if I'm an immigrant.
Yeah, I guess like my definition of immigrant was like or not definition, but I guess like it always had like this connotation of like escaping something or like searching for something better. And I guess like I did look at those things and I was looking for something better, a different way of living and stuff. But like I never felt like an immigrant per se, I guess, because like I was always connected back home. I was always going back home. I never felt like a disconnect. I never felt like there was like a sacrifice was being made per se. And I guess like I didn't feel that until recently there was some like changes in Argentina to migration and stuff. And now because I'm not a citizen of Argentina, I am seeing like different like I'm basically being treated like a second class citizen and it kind of sucks. And so then I sort of felt like I am and I'm an immigrant too.
Right.
You know? So
Right. So to close the podcast, tell me something that what is the best thing you like? What is the best thing about Argentina that you like? And I tell you what's the best thing I like about United States.
okay. I'd say the best thing about Argentina is los argentinos, the Argentines.
Right. To me, the same. I like Americans are very friendly people.
Yeah,
They
that's right.
are. They are. Yeah, I'm very patient, man. I think Argentinians are less patient than Americans, in my opinion. But it's a cultural thing, right? But yeah, the Americans are not too loud. Argentinians are,
No?
you know. I
Ah.
Look. I was in Germany, Ross. I went to see the soccer World Cup in 2006.
Okay.
There was a banderazo. You know what a banderazo is, right? When they have
Yeah,
all the soccer fans, they
for
took over
sure.
the road with flags on their heads, and they're walking with this, I don't know, 100 feet flag, whatever long it was, and they were shouting right for Argentina, and there was a cop in this cross, right in this intersection. So they surrounded this German cop, and they took the hat, they passed it around. I
No.
never seen American doing that. I'm not saying that American or Argentinians are better than the other. We all have our flaws, right? I can talk about other things that maybe, but I think I'm a little bit more respectful than we are.
I think you cherry picked that example though, buddy, because like I think like with football, with soccer, that's like the one. But like in general, you go to a bar anywhere, who are you gonna hear first? An Argentinian, or you're gonna hear the American?
Right. Probably.
Nah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know,
But I
man.
feel like with football, or yeah, that's
I
nah.
think
I have
Americans
my
are only more loud when they're drinking. Americans are pretty quiet until they drink. When they start drinking, Argentinians are loud all the time. Americans after they drink, that's it. They're friendly. They hug you. They don't care. Am I right or wrong about that?
You're right. You're right. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
An American, they drink a lot. I think they drink a lot more than Argentinians. I believe.
Yes, 100%, sir. Yeah. In
Yeah.
Argentina, you one little traguito all night, one little drink. In America, that's like you're pounding a lot more.
Right. Ross, it was a pleasure to have you, man. Thank you.
Likewise.
Good luck with your channel. Hopefully
Thank
we
you.
can do more podcasts in the future. We kind of having an update
Absolutely.
or maybe collaborate. I don't know. I'm open to whatever you need from me. In return for you being here and share your story and support my cause. So I thank you for that. And I hope my people treat you good. And, whatever you decide, stay longer, shorter, doesn't matter. And if I go this year, which I'm planning to go to Argentina to do Route 40, I'm taking
Oh,
two.
really?
Yeah, I'm taking two Ukrainian friends with me.
Oh, that's gonna be
Yeah,
epic.
my wife is Ukrainian, so she has Ukrainian friends that live in Florida. We're gonna go to Argentina. We're gonna take a trip to Route 40. So I might stop by and say, "Hey Ross,
Hey, if
how
you
you
need
doing?"
capital, let me know. Let's grab a coffee or something.
Right, we do. All right, Ross. Thank you,
Hey,
man.
thank you again.
Thank you for having you. Thank you for having you. Thank you for being on my podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Bye.